All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining. We're here at our eighth Calling All Trades Jobs for a Green Economy speaker series. My name is Drew Johnstone, and I'm with the City of Santa Monica's Office of Sustainability and the Environment. And I'm co-hosting the series with Michael Jackson, who's also with the city. And we've had a great couple months speaking with professionals that are involved in various trades and encouraging folks who are looking to enter into a new job or start their career journey on a path that will lead to a sustainable future. And I'm really excited to have with us today Evette Ellis, who's the co-founder of ChargerHelp. And I'll let her introduce herself in just a moment. I just want to tee things off by saying that the City of Santa Monica is really aggressively promoting electric vehicle adoption to reduce our emissions. And about 62% of our city's emissions come from vehicle tailpipes. So this is electric vehicle infrastructure is something that we're very supportive of, and really looking forward to hearing about your company and electric vehicle infrastructure and why it's going to play such a crucial role in helping our community and our region with our climate neutrality goals. So yeah, if you wouldn't mind, please introduce yourself, and our attendees love to hear about your career journey as well. So if you can give a little bit of background on how you got to become a co-founder of ChargerHelp.
Thank you so much, Drew. My name is Evette Ellis. I am co-founder and chief workforce officer here at ChargerHelp. I always say the co-founder is the fun part, and the chief workforce officer is the actual work that I do to earn my keep around here. So my entire career history has been workforce development, not really sustainability or clean energy. It's been workforce development. I worked with the Department of Labor's Job Corps program for 10 years before starting at ChargerHelp. And I did everything from work-based learning, which is creating intern and externships, to career transition specialists, which is placing recent graduates into the fields that they actually trained for, wink, wink. And then lastly, outreach and retention. So became very familiar with figuring out what the community needs are, what the actual training program needs are, and what employer needs are. And I really mastered connecting employers and their needs with qualified, trained folks through the program that I worked for. So I'm really good at hearing what you need and finding a person for that. So that's pretty much what I do at ChargerHelp. I know what our needs are, I know what our goals are, and I find talent and I recruit and hire for those particular needs.
Interesting. So when you founded ChargerHelp, what did you see as a need for chargers, and can you describe what ChargerHelp does?
Yeah, so there was twofold. Well, first of all, ChargerHelp, we're a technology company, and we fix broken EV charging stations. So the charging stations that you see electric vehicles charged to, we fix them. That's the short answer. The longer answer is there's a whole infrastructure and behind the scenes world of folks that make the whole EV industry work. And one of the holes that we saw in the industry, my co-founder and I, that we saw in the industry was there wasn't a workforce to actually fix the charging stations in a timely manner. There were folks out fixing them, usually your electric contractors, and there may have even been some types of technicians that companies had to go out and fix, but generally there wasn't a workforce geared, trained up in multiple different assets and machinery to go out and fix the charging stations. And we found that 80% of the time when a charging station was down, it wasn't an actual electrical issue, it was a software issue. So you didn't just need someone to go out and just fix the electricity or what was put in the ground. Our electric contractors did a great job of putting the assets in the ground. But what we found was that the software was having issues and would need someone to come out and troubleshoot. Well, we all know that electric contractor, they do some major things that we don't do with electricity. So when you have a down charging station and you get out there and now we need to download an app and do things that you have other things that you could be focused on. So we found a hole in the market in a place where we could actually train folks to kind of on-ramp people into a decent paying job. We start off at $30 an hour and we pay benefits, right? And so we had an opportunity to really create net new jobs, which is a job that did not previously exist. And so that we found that to be very exciting. It's also a job that could lead to a number of different pathways, including an electrical contractor. So we were excited about that. So it's not necessarily taking work away from anyone, it's creating work for folks and actually giving them opportunity to explore clean energy, holistically and to see it. And we know, on the social impact side of it, that lots of marginalized communities, minorities, Black and brown folks, to be quite frank, may not have access to an on-ramp into this industry, right? And we wanted to create more of that, not to say nothing existed, but we wanted to make sure that, of course, diversity, equity, inclusion, all that was also something that we could way for. And I think naturally we're doing that. We are really focused on removing barriers for people to apply for good jobs. And we think that's something that we look at through a workforce lens, that we think more companies and more industries should start looking at the future of work through an actual workforce lens and removing barriers for folks. So because we've worked really hard at that, we've done a really good job of recruiting a naturally diverse workforce for ChargerHelp.
Wow, you've touched on so many interesting things in the last couple of minutes. I've got a lot of follow-up questions. With your background in workforce development and your role at ChargerHelp, is your primary role recruiting folks to join this job pipeline into ChargerHelp exclusively, or do you have strategic partnerships with other companies that you work with that you recruit for as well?
Right. No, it is for ChargerHelp exclusively. However, we are dedicated and committed to working with workforce development centers, programs, agencies. So we do work closely with our partners to say, hey, we would like to train, we can do a training with 15 folks in it. We may take the top 3, to hire, because we are not gig economy. So we are full-time W-2 employees. You guaranteed your money and your hours per week. So because of that, we can't overpromise and underdeliver, and we need to be very careful. But what we do is we are advocates for this route of recruitment through whether it's community colleges, a workforce development program, any program that's looking to help folks find a job. So while we recruit for ourselves, we offer stackable certifications like the OSHA 10, like the NFPA 70E, the ChargerHelp curriculum, and that just makes someone more marketable for another clean energy job, right? It gives you some kind of baseline for sustainability, and you understand, even if it's a small part, you understand a part of the ecosystem, which we found to make other candidates that go through our training very marketable, and we haven't had a problem with them finding jobs. Nice, I would say, entry to mid-level jobs. Also, we really do encourage like other stackable certifications, like project coordination or project management. Some of our folks had CAD and CAM, background. So This is an industry that's growing very fast and its infrastructure being put in. So you can't look at any particular job too narrow, right? The more skill set and certifications that you have, the more marketable it'll make you.
Mm-hmm. What are some of the skills that you look for in some of these trainings? If you have 15 people that show up and you said you might hire 2 or 3 at the top, like what are some of the attributes or skills that those 3 have that really stand out to you or that you're looking for in a candidate?
Yeah, so we are less concerned about the hard skills because that's what training is for. That is our thought process. And that is one way we remove barriers, right? We are not looking for the thing we're going to teach you. We're going to teach you how to do the things. The things I'm looking for are the things that your mama should have taught you, are the things that your school counselor or work experience or even just world experience in college, we're hoping have taught you, like soft skills that has risen to the top. The technical skills we can take care of. I cannot take care of if you don't have self-awareness because the job is pretty remote. We have built technology. So we have an app and you get your work orders and you do the work in your areas. So we're in 8 states right now. We're in California, Arizona, Colorado, Washington, Oregon, New York, Texas, and Florida, and we're growing very fast. So I'm not in Florida, right? So I can't be with my technician in Florida. So I have to trust their soft skills. I have to trust their soft skills because technical skills we're going to get all day long. But if you can communicate properly with a site host, if you can communicate properly with our network provider, if you can communicate properly with our team manager, right? Our field service manager from a distance. Are you reliable? Integrity? Are you showing up where you're supposed to show? Like those basic things for us are huge, right? If we can get those things in a nutshell, oh, we can teach you how to fix a charging station. That's the least of my worries.
That is a theme that we have heard week after week, is that the hard skills and the technical knowledge will be taught, and it's the soft skills, the trustworthiness, punctuality, eagerness to learn. That is what you're looking for.
It is really going to become the most marketable thing you can have. And also that's what's going to make work competitive. Do people, I tell them, I'm a career coach by trade. Like that's what I do. I actually still career coach, believe it or not, with the Los Angeles Clean Tech Incubator, which I know you all are familiar with. But I love career coaching. I'll never give it up because it's just my opportunity to pour into folks things that I know and that I learn day to day. But my career has taught me that if you cannot properly communicate, that's where the class should be taken. That's the class you should be taking, is if you can't properly communicate, because time is money now at work and people don't have time to develop skills like communication, because we want to spend the time when I'm with you. I want to spend the time teaching you how to fix a charging station. I don't want my field service manager spending time talking to you about self-awareness and things like that. Those are things that we constantly go over, but when work orders are flowing and when we're moving, there is no time for that. And that is how you will become extra weight for a company, any company, is if the soft skills are not present, because companies are not necessarily staffed to deal with that on a regular basis, right? We are just moving out of the startup phase. So we are very tight up top. And if you can't fit and flow with us, it is very difficult for us to just drag along someone that just does not have soft skills. So I want to make that very clear. But technical skills, we can teach you how to fix a charging station.
Mm-hmm. Can you tell me a little bit more about a day in the life of some of your employees and the kinds of things that they do? And start that.
Okay. So usually the day before, what your work orders will be, and you are able to determine like how early you need to leave, what tools you need, if we need to get any extra things, get you to the work site the next day. You check in with whoever the site host is, and you get started on the work. Each work order is very different. And some things are brand new because its infrastructure is new. So definitely someone that is not just overthrown with new things. You know, flexibility is really big. Our techs are very flexible. They're very innovative. They ask lots of questions and they do a lot of research on their own time. Because some questions, there is no answer yet. We are actually creating the answers to the question. So I would say you probably can do 2 to 3 work orders a day. We don't have our techs go more than 3 hours away from their home, and very seldom do they go 3 hours away from their home. But you could be asked to go that far, depending on where you are. You know, some of our techs in, say, Colorado or Oregon, you know, there may be a more of a stretch than our Los Angeles techs, who, you know, we have an Orange County person, we have a South Bay person, and they can pretty much stay in their area because we have so many charging stations.
Do each of your techs have their own vehicle that they use, or do they use a ChargerHelp vehicle? And do you have like a warehouse that they go to get equipment and tools?
Right now, and those are all things, oh, you're all in our executive meeting, Drew. You're all in it. So right now, we are ensuring them to use their own cars, but we are so close to having cars for all of our techs. That is the ultimate goal, is for them to have EVs. Mainly because they're fixing EV stations, and the way we can make sure the station works is to plug up, right? So yes, that is the goal. I think for insurance and liability purposes as well, it's just safer. So yeah, we are planning, hopefully by the end of 2021, our technicians will have cars as well. And what was the second part of the question?
I was like, is there a warehouse? Like, what kind of tools do they take to a job site? I know you have a symbiotic relationship with electricians that do a lot of the electrical work, and maybe you're doing mostly software or some minor fixes of the hardware.
Yeah, we do some minor fixes here or there. Anything that's not, there definitely is a strong boundary between what we can do and what an electrician can do. Of course, they've been to school for 5 years. There's a number of things that we can't touch that they absolutely can do. I would say all of our techs have set tools that they use. Different jobs may require that we make a trip to the store and pick up something in particular. But because each job is different, I mean, generally we use the same tools, but you will find that, oh, this job, you need this particular drill, or you need this particular wrench to undo the door. You know, it just depends.
And then just to give people an overview of like the electric vehicle charging marketplace, I'm sure you come across the same few brands of charging equipment that you work with, or can it really like, do you have certifications? Like, is there some sort of certifications that the charging companies require you to get to work on their equipment?
So for us, we have contracts with different network providers. However, we wrote the curriculum, and we also were approved for ONET code by the U.S. Department of Labor. Anyone that's in workforce development or placement may know what this is, but if you don't, ONET code is the code that U.S. Department of Labor uses for their database to kind of legitimize, qualify a job, right? So everybody on here, whatever job you've ever had, is probably in this database for the whole US. Oh, somebody's speeding. Sorry about that. And they gave us an ONET code, so it kind of gives us a gist of how much the salary range, the skill set, the education needed. And then it shows you other career paths that have similar training and similar, skill sets, education, and salary. So that was really important for us to get because it legitimized us. But my co-founder wrote the original curriculum for this, and we taught our first few folks through our initial hires through the Los Angeles Clean Tech Incubator. So yeah, we have our own curriculum.
Very cool. How many techs you said you're in 8 states? That's really amazing. Is California your biggest market, and how many employees do you have right now?
California is our biggest market. Total, we have 32 employees. We have about 20 techs, however. And we have In most states, two, with the exception of Arizona. Arizona only has one, and then New York has a few more techs than two, and California has 6 techs. So you got to think this is full-time work, right? 40 hours a week. So what we didn't want to do and what we will not do is overpromise and have folks just kind of sitting around and then maybe have to eliminate a job. So we make sure that there's enough charging stations in the vicinity that we have contracts with, right, that we're actually expected to work on before we hire. So that's why we like working with workforce development centers, because almost everywhere has a workforce development center. And I can say to a workforce development center, we're only looking to hire one person, but we would be more than willing to train 6 people if that makes them more marketable, or 10 people if it makes them more marketable. But then the workforce development center then pulls the weight of placement or maybe any additional training that may be needed to get those that we don't hire to get them placed somewhere. So we're happy to be a part of that ecosystem as well, because for some folks, they just need an introduction to something. Now, don't get me wrong, after our training, there's hands-on training, and then you learn so much more information that those that did not get chosen will not learn simply because they're not ChargerHelp employees and don't get that experience. But I will say the training that you do receive, I think is very helpful and foundational for someone that's starting in this industry.
Interesting. I know that electric vehicle infrastructure, when it's being installed, there are a lot of different parties involved. Do you have a good understanding of all different parties involved, and do you want to describe them for the viewers?
Yeah, you have your network providers who are like, I'm not saying they are like the Verizon, Sprint, T-Mobiles of cell phone, right? So you have your big players who run the software, right? And then you have, say, an Apple that manufactures the actual phones. Well, same thing in EV. You have network providers and then you have manufacturers. Other players are your site hosts, so where the actual charging stations are, and who kind of has jurisdiction over where they actually land. You have your electrical contractors who are responsible for all things electricity and putting them in the ground and making sure everybody's safe. And then you have ChargerHelp, who maintains and repairs and does the maintenance on the charging stations. And then you can't forget about the EV driver, who ultimately tells us if any of us are doing anything right, right? So those are the main players for the EV infrastructure. I mean, and then you have policy folks that are working on the legislation and laws that go around EV charging and all the rules and regulations, right? And now you even see more of a play with workforce development. So you see colleges and you see other training programs getting involved. So this ecosystem will only grow, but right now I think those are your top 5 or 6.
Yeah, it's really great. I just want people to understand that this is a really growing field and that there are a lot of players surrounding electric vehicles, electric vehicle infrastructure. And then of course there's the vehicle manufacturers themselves.
Great
that there are so many domestic ones. Yeah. A lot of American companies.
See? We're at 7 already.
Yeah. Because I'm involved a little bit on the city side, since we are a site host for many EV chargers. We have a goal to get our goal is 300 public chargers by the end of 2021, but it's looking like that will probably be 2022. I think we have about 150 ports that are public right now, and we're just trying to get that number up. And we're in a unique place because we own property.
That's one full-time job with ChargerHelp. See, 350, that provides one full-time. That's somebody that can be paid $30 an hour, one full-time job with a local residence, right? Because we hire locally. So someone in Santa Monica, right, that will have an opportunity to maintain the infrastructure there in Santa Monica. They would learn all of the machinery and assets there, get very familiar, and that will be the person for that area. And that's the other end of ChargerHelp, is making sure people understand, like, this works. It's a reciprocated thing, right? The more contracts we get, because we hire locally, we don't fly people from California to Florida to fix a charging station. Why? When we can hire somebody in Florida. And that's the workforce development piece that is really, really gold, and people seem to really respond to, and we're glad about it because we've always seen it that way. But if you put down, 350 charging stations, why not recruit, train, and hire someone from that same community to keep them up instead of just not caring? And that's the way we can create net new jobs, is when we think with that lens.
Yeah, absolutely. We want these charging stations to be a sustainable resource, and we need to maximize uptime, right? If a charger is not functioning, it's not helping anyone. And
for that
so
city, for that city, right? When people come to your city, to know that the charging stations are working. And if they're not, they have an on-demand or a dedicated technician that could get out today, right, and fix it. And we found that to become very popular. Some contracts and companies we're working with now, they're looking for dedicated people. They don't even want to share the person with the rest of the city. They're like, nope. How much does it cost for Lisa to be available to the city of Santa Monica full time? And we don't want any of our residents, visitors, folks that work here. We don't want anyone waiting for a charging station to be troubleshot when we have someone right here that can do that. So that's a great example.
That's interesting. Well, I know the city and ChargerHelp had been in conversation in the past, but we should definitely bring that conversation up again to see if we could work together, a local hire, because we're just going to see more and more stations, and in the private sector as well. There'll be more and more stations installed in office buildings, restaurants, et cetera. And San Monica has a building code that requires 10%. Like if a new apartment building is built, 10% of those parking spaces have to have chargers installed. And so that's across the board.
Absolutely.
Construction. So we're just going to see the number go up and up. That's really interesting. So yeah, I guess, so you were talking about sort of local training and hire. Do you have any upcoming training opportunities, or are you actively recruiting in the LA area at this time?
We have a training coming up at the end of September. We are trying to determine right now which areas. And like I said before, for instance, if we were working with Santa Monica and they did want a dedicated person, that would be one of the things that we're hiring for in September, right? To get that person up and running. So we're looking at our contracts and looking at who wants dedicated people versus just area that we have to cover. And we're determining how many people we will actually train. We are also training a cohort of folks in Massachusetts because they are up and running and they want dedicated folks for their charging stations in Boston, and there's like 2 other surrounding cities. So we're working with them, and now that we have them squared away, we will train people specifically just for their areas. So we see cities definitely hopping on with the equipment that they're responsible for and making sure that the uptime is there. So to answer your question, the end of September, who and where, we're trying to, folks have been pondering and thinking what they want to do. So we're trying to get a grip on exactly who needs what so we can get these folks trained up and to work.
Great. Well, if you're looking for attendees and getting as many people there as possible, we'd love to share that once the details are known.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Okay, well, I've asked most of my tech questions. I kind of have a personal/professional question. Were you interested in EV chargers and EV charger infrastructure before this, or you and your co-founders really just found this need, and based on your experience and maybe your entrepreneurial spirit, you're like, this might be a good industry to get into?
No, to answer your question. Now, my co-founder, I won't speak for her, but what I do know is that she worked for a network provider company, and when drivers would call angry and wanting this station that's been down for 3 weeks to be fixed, she would eventually, even though it wasn't her job, she would eventually go out and figure out how to at least get it back online. And it was all software. She worked for the software company, so she was able to do it. And after doing it a few times, she said, now look, this is a job for somebody, not my job, but this is a job for someone. And that's when she started to really dream up ChargerHelp. I met Camille at Lacey at the Los Angeles Clean Tech Incubator, and she liked the way that I career coached in my workforce development, and that became really the heart of ChargerHelp, is workforce development. We are a tech company. We fix EV charging station, but we care a lot about workforce development. We care a lot about equity. Personally, as the folks that founded the company, and she asked me to come on board maybe a month after she got started, and we dreamt up the rest of ChargerHelp together. So I always say it's her baby, but it's my kid. So she's brilliant, and she did a wonderful job coming up with the concept. And I never, I'm a 9-to-5er. So for those of you all who are watching, that's like entrepreneurs starting a business, clean energy, none of that was on my radar, but that is what makes me very passionate about reskilling, retraining, and transferable skill sets, right? Because it's a lot of folks that will have to, that didn't necessarily think that's what they would be doing or want to do it. But the world is changing, and technology is changing everything, not just even the transportation industry, but every industry is changing. So as we move to better ways of doing things, we can't forget the folks that worked in oil, and who worked in fossil fuels, and who worked in jobs that ideally we don't want it, but those are actual people and incomes and families and generations of people who grew up on certain ways of earning their income. And me personally, my dad was a truck driver, so he definitely contributed to the earth not being the best, right? But how many choices did he have? Was this good money back then? So there's a lot of things to consider when we're moving over to a cleaner, greener world. We can't leave people behind. And the one way we can make sure that we do that is with job creation, right? And making sure that there's opportunity, and making sure that we're equitable and we are inclusive, because otherwise we leave out certain communities of folks that may not have exposure or access to clean energy. And we all know that even to know some of these things now is a lot more easy to access online, like folks that will get an opportunity to see this, anyone can see it. But I will say that we have to make a special effort to make sure that everybody at least knows the opportunities are available. And I think with that, that's what really motivated me to do this. It doesn't take rocket science to figure out our world is changing. It was a great opportunity. I was not short of skills, and I'm a quick learner, and very passionate about some basic things like how we treat people and make sure that people are confident, different learning styles. Are you a tactile learner? Are you a visual audio learner? And should you not have opportunity at certain jobs because you learn differently? So all those things are what I'm passionate about. So as we recruit, we ask you to take a learning style test, not to eliminate you from a job, but so we can say oh, in this group we have 80% of these folks are tactile. We may need to do an in-person situation for these folks. These folks are visual and audio, so we may need to make sure that we do A, B, and C. Different things are really helpful. And as we talk to our customers and as we continue to develop and grow our curriculum, how much of it needs to be in person, how much of it can be virtual. Now that everything is virtual, everybody just throwing everything to virtual worlds. Well, that's going to eliminate a whole group of people that don't learn the best virtually, right? So we have to consider all of those things. And then again, back to removing barriers, not just creating barriers to create barriers, because that's what we've kind of been taught to do in the workforce world. We taught to test people out, to instead of figuring out, does this particular job require these things that we're just accustomed to testing people in and out of and basing if someone can get a job on that, versus the soft skills that we talked about that you can clearly see that employers are asking for and need. So you reading, you being a speed reader and you're not being able to communicate verbally with a site host, I'm going to pick the person that can communicate verbally with a site host. I don't need you to be a speed reader. I don't need you to and if you are a speed reader, more power to you. I am too. But that doesn't necessarily mean I can properly fix a charging station. So the needs of the employers and the fields that are growing are changing, and we have to, as gatekeepers, because that's who I call, you, Drew, and Michael, you all are gatekeepers to information, and we have to make sure that our views and lens of the future of work, our current workforce development, that is not skewed by either how long we've been working, that is not skewed by how old we are. I know sometimes I struggle with new concepts because I grew up in this is how you do it, right? This is how you work. This is what you wear to work. And I'm very big on that. And working in tech, let me tell you, nobody dresses up the way I was accustomed to dressing up. So I had to acclimate to that. Instead of saying you are doing it wrong, I have to say, oh no, this is another new way that this can be done. And that's very important moving forward, that the gatekeepers understand that, and that will definitely remove barriers and allow people to move forward.
Yeah, wow, that's some really powerful stuff. Just talking about, flexibility and equity. Those are some amazing strategies that you're deploying at ChargerHelp, and I think we can all learn from you there.
Thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to open it up to questions for folks on the call. Michael, do you have any that you've been waiting on?
Yeah, I'll see if anybody else have any questions before. I don't want to take up time, rather give it to the crowd and come back.
Well, you can kick it off while they're thinking.
Okay. Evette, as you were talking about the honing of soft skills that you're to be able to work with people, to have trust in the work they do, as you guys teach them the hard skills, how do you determine, this is the fact that you're a workforce leader, when where somebody can have some more encouragement, leeway, and when have you figured out when, you know what, this just isn't going to work?
Yeah, our recruitment process is actually a little longer than normal. It's about 32 days. And I know that sounds very long when you are applying for a job, but because we can't afford, that's how serious we are, and we cannot afford for your soft skills to be trash for our particular business to be successful. We have group interviews because you really do get to see different personalities in the group setting. I think most of us are geared up to be one-on-one and to share our best self, right, on an interview. And we're like, this is what you're going to get. And I'm like, I don't trust it. That's what I'm going to get in 6 months. So we really believe that group interviews, you kind of see who your leader is, who your follower is, which let me be clear, there's not anything wrong with being a follower if you're a master at it. And we kind of see who the innovative one is, who the administrative one is. So, and sometimes all those skill sets are wrapped up in one person. We see if people are rude, just over talking, trying to show out, you know, we get to exhibit all of that. So we do group interviews, and it's very interesting because more than likely your self-awareness or lack thereof shows up in a group interview and you don't even know it. So we get to see that, and that's very important because this is our first time interacting with you, and the culture of ChargerHelp, the work is you are literally talking to people every day that you don't know. And so we have to trust that there is a baseline, level of being polite. There's a baseline level of when we're frustrated, this is what we do, and that you match the culture of the folks that we say that we're sending out. So we find that the group interviews are very helpful. The one-on-one interviews still happen. Also, during our application process, learning style may determine if someone is comfortable or not. And also, instead of having you write a whole lot of junk about yourself or reading your resume 3 times, we ask you to send a video. And that really helps because some people can really show up on camera. Some people can't, and they'll do better with the writing. So we just give some flexibility in even the recruitment process. And we usually can tell who has strong soft skills and who's not. In the event that you do not have strong soft skills, I have no problem telling anyone. And I say that not to be ugly, but to ensure that they know that new and up and coming jobs will be looking for soft skills. So this may be an area you really want to improve in. Even when career coaching, I encourage the fellows that I career coach to talk in front of the mirror, ask your mom, your dad, your husband, your wife, and maybe even your kid, and they may not. Our family gets so accustomed to hearing us. They don't tell us that we have run-on sentences. They don't tell us that we overtalk. They don't tell us that we are monotone. They don't tell us those things that when you get frustrated, you turn colors, and it's very obvious. Your facial expressions give your whole thought process away. So those kinds of things become very, very important. And I definitely suggest any career coaching, or if they're working, more than likely they're working with a workforce development agency program or center, I really say like, hey, you have a shot at this because we can teach you the soft skills. However, we can't take that bet that you know how to control yourself when you get upset, because you got upset during a meeting, and we can't take those chances. Our margin for error is very slim. Very slim. And you will find that most startups are companies that are right above startup really cannot take that ride with you. So but hey, I think it's better to work on the soft skills than to have to walk into something knowing all the technical skills. So I think it gives people a good chance to get a position like this.
Yeah, I was thinking of how would you package that being a startup and knowing that there's the I'm trying to use the best analogy, there's not that much room of error, as you would say.
Yeah.
Also,
I don't know if you can package it. You just have to be very transparent with everyone that your margin for error is very slim, and I absolutely cannot afford to spend time here. That it just is what it is.
Right. This kind of leads me into my next question. As somebody who does the workforce development, you've went out, you're in all these states. How has your been approach to trying to gather more work for ChargerHelp, but then also understanding the capacity in which you have to fulfill the workload or things that you might need to have done? So like, what has been your approach and how do you go about it?
So I would say we definitely work with Workforce Development Center. So if we say we have an upcoming work in Santa Monica, I will work with the local Workforce Development Center that already has their hand on folks looking for work in the Santa Monica area. I would let them know all. So when we're talking about how do I let people know about what we're looking for, I really drill that into my workforce development specialist expert that I'm working with, because they will be locating the folks that we will then send through our recruitment process. And I don't do any of that if we don't already have contracts for that area and we can guarantee some jobs, right? Even if it's one, I have to know that we don't just train to train, we train folks for work. And I think, you know, if you look at some other clean energy industries that may have had a go at it, like maybe solar. Solar is such a great field. But I've heard from many solar folks that, you know, like we may have overpromised in the beginning. Everybody was doing so we want to make sure that we're very conscious about that and not overpromising folks, not overtraining folks for jobs that are not here yet. While we are creating that new jobs, we do not like to say like everybody will be hired. That's not true. So definitely getting the contracts. How do we get contracts? We have a dynamic sales team that works with all of the different players. I just saw the street sweeper and I was just thinking, did I move my car? But I did. We have a dynamic sales team that works with all the different players. And really when I have opportunities like this, Michael, to share with people of influence that, hey, possibly your citizens in your city could get a job, but that is dependent on if we have the contract in your city, right? So it's just a reciprocated, which actually has turned out to really work for people. People really like working with us because they know they're actually supplying a job for the area that they serve, which folks like, and we like the idea. So that's how we usually measure like who we're going to hire, where we're going to hire, how we stand up workforce. It's actually based on contracts.
Well, that gives me a great view of like, because then it gives you the accessibility of what that area needs, and then you can train and then get the proper connection within that community and try to bring people on and stuff. So that's I guess that's the organic approach, right?
It is a very organic approach that, you know, for some people it may even feel like a little longer, a little harder, but this is when we're talking about creating change in our country and we're talking about being more equitable and all the things that we talked about in 2020, we have to do the things that may take a little bit more effort, but it's going to be right. And if you're talking about creating jobs for your city, then you have to actually turn your lens to companies, right, that are interested in creating jobs for your citizens, for that particular area's folks, right? And I think that should be a big deal versus always outsourcing and someone coming into your city to do the work. A company that's willing to hire someone in your city is I'm hoping it's going to be the new thing that folks are like looking to hire local, and it becomes something that cities and different utilities, you know, are attracted to and want to see more of.
Co-sign on that. Okay. Anyone else have a question? Unless Drew, you're about to say something. Sorry.
No, just open it up to other questions if folks have them. All right. Well, if not, Evette, anything else you'd like to do to sort of wrap up this amazing session? I want to thank you again. This has been really amazing, and
yes, it
really proud of the
has.
work you're doing.
Thank you so much. I can be found on LinkedIn, Evette Ellis, or you can look up ChargerHelp. Also, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram if you just want to get a peek into our culture and what our techs look, and we do a day in the life of every now and then on Instagram and LinkedIn. And of course, www.chargerhelp.com. If anyone ever hears this and you're interested in like partnering with us or doing work with us for your city, or for your site, we would love to be in contact with you, and our sales team could definitely walk you through what that might look like, to partner with ChargerHelp. So we're really, really excited and hoping that platforms like this do two things. One, really share ChargerHelp, the vision and what we do with people generally. But especially those who are looking to on-ramp into a new career. We're hoping to expose people to other options, and not just with ChargerHelp, but in clean energy, period. And then lastly, to the decision makers that make a lot of decisions, companies like ChargerHelp will really need that kind of support to really do what we're capable of doing and what we are doing. And our home base is here in LA, so we are definitely looking to dominate and love on our LA folks and make sure that the charging EV infrastructure is up and running in LA. We are the leader, and we've been in other states, but I believe LA is leading the way with the EV infrastructure, but New York is a close right behind us. New York is really, 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 really putting their money where their mouth is when it comes to EV charging stations being up and running in their uptime. So I'm really proud of California, but I am watching these other states and I like to stay ahead. So with that, I would say thank you all so much for having me and allowing me to ramble on about charging stations and ChargerHelp. It was great to be here.
Well, thank you. This will be posted on YouTube in the near future for folks that missed it. And we will just be in touch. Thank you again so much.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
so much,
Evette.
everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.